activate modules for the open company, customize windows, and perform data maintenance. It is also important to note that in order for security to be enabled, it must be selected in the system database and database setup. Let's take a look at administrative services.
Establishing security in Sage ACPAC begins with enabling security in the system database and database setup. If security is not enabled, then security settings will not be used and users will not be required to enter passwords when logging into Sage ACPAC. When security is enabled, you can begin to set up users. The Users window allows you to establish different users to access Sage ACPAC. You must enter a user ID, which can be alphanumeric. The Account Type field lets you select whether this user is a full user, thus using a LAN pack license, or a timecard user, using a timecard license. Language overlays can be purchased for Sage ACPAC that change windows and reports to different languages. This functionality is user-specific, and depending on the language overlays installed, you can select a particular language for the employee. English is the only language available out of the box. There are three types of authentication methods and password verification that can be used. ACPAC authentication requires passwords to be established and maintained here on the user window. Windows authentication allows the user record to be linked to a Windows domain, so that the user enters their user ID and password given to them by their network administrator. If this is selected, you must specify a Windows domain and the user's Windows username. Windows usernames can be linked to only one Sage ACPAC user record. Finally, you can select a combination of the two for authentication, and establish a link with the Windows domain user and define a password for the user. When the user opens Sage ACPAC, on the sign-on window, he or she can enter their ACPAC user ID and password, or click on the Windows Authentication button to enter their domain and network password. You can further control security by the various settings available for the user record. You can force the user to change their password and give them the ability to change their own password. You can restrict the times and days that the user can log on, and you can disable the user. Remember that the default user is the admin user. This user record cannot be deleted. You should change the admin user password from the default admin password, and you can do so here. The next step to establishing security is to define the different access rights available to users. This is called security groups. From this window, note that security groups are application specific. Security must be defined per module. You can enter a group ID for the module that you are establishing security for. You should be consistent with naming your group IDs across all modules. For example, in this case we are creating a high access group for administrative services. You can also create a high access group with the same group code for each of the other modules as well, and a medium and a low, or whatever scale is required. The checkboxes indicate all of the areas where access can be granted or denied. Each module has their own different functions available for granting access. All modules except the System Manager include inquiry settings that allow users to look at records without editing them. The System Manager has a few functions that impact navigation and setup throughout all of the modules. You can block users from changing the company desktop, changing the print destination, and accessing additional Finder fields. At the bottom of this window, you can choose to quickly select all options or remove all options and add or delete security groups. The final step to establishing security is to assign specific users to specific security groups. This is done in the User Authorizations window. From here, you call up a user record and assign that user to the specific security group for each module that you are granting access to for that user. Modules that do not have a security group assigned indicate that the user has no access to that module. When the user logs in, he or she can only see those modules that the user is assigned to a security group, and are able to function in each module as the security group settings allow. Security can further be enhanced by customizing windows. This is an out-of-the-box feature that allows you to remove various fields and controls on Sage ACPAC interface windows. If you are able to customize the window, you can see a Customize option from the File menu of the window. From the Customize window, you are able to enter a working profile name. This is a profile that you can establish and then add specific users to that profile, so that those users are not able to access certain functions on specific windows. You can click on New to create a new working profile. The checklists indicate all of the fields and controls that are visible on the window. To remove a particular field, simply deselect the checkbox. In this case, let's remove the Delete button from the user window. You can assign this window customization to additional profiles at the bottom. Next, we need to assign specific users to specific profiles. You can do this from the Assign UI Profiles window. You can also see a list of which windows have been customized for each UI profile from the UI Profile Maintenance window. Now, if we log on to this company as John, we can see the security groups and UI Profile Maintenance in action. As you can see, John only has access to the Administrative Services group, and if we open the Users window, we see that John does not see the Delete button.